Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. There are many books about golf out there, but not many that blend golf and spirituality, a feeling of positivity. And this gentleman has made the perfect blend between those. He's got 2 books out. I love this one. I love the first one, but I love this one. And we're going to focus on this book in just a couple of minutes, Fairways to Heaven. And he is the director of instruction for the Medallion Club at Columbus, Ohio, and so much more. And he's back with us. John Decker joins us on the program. Hey, John.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you've been, as we identified previously, golf is your life. You have been doing this for 4 decades plus?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I've been playing the game since the age of 10, and I started teaching the game, and in 1992 is when I actually got into the golf business.
Why did you feel that you needed to get this message out there with these books that connect spirituality, religion, if you will, with golf? Why was that connection being made?
Well, in my first book, Golf is My Life, I look at that as the knowledge that I've obtained from this world, from being around the game and learning from a lot of wonderful teachers. But glorifying God through the game, that part was the wisdom that God gave me through years of studying the Bible and years of going to church and years of praying and years of life experiences. And so I really wanted to show how golf and life were similar. And I wanted to show how Christianity was similar as well. So that was the whole idea of the scripture, life story, golf story. And with that in mind, I try to also get across the message to all of us that we all have certain skill sets for this lifetime. And you're a great podcaster. You have a great voice and everything. But whatever it is that whatever talents that God has given us, we are to use those talents not to glorify ourselves. We're to use those talents to glorify God. And so both books have that theme in mind.
So we're going to get to your golf questions, by the way. He is an instructor. If you have questions, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. Before we get there are 4 people you identify in this book who have made a mark on your life. Can we talk about them?
Yes. This in my first and second book, I wanted to have a personal entry into the chapters. I think a lot of times when you talk about in chapters, you can talk about people, but if you don't really know that person, it's very difficult to kind of get the message across. So I wanted to have a personal entry, and I came up with the idea of calling it As Seen Through My Eyes. And so the first book is loaded with these As Seen Through My Eyes forwards, is the way I like to describe them. In the second book, I have 4 people, Dr. Angelica Napolitano, who is the one that actually gave me the idea for the title. So I wanted to share that. Also, the fact that she lived in Black Mountain, North Carolina, even though she lives in Florida now, and we're totally different ages. But the fact that I wanted to kind of give her perspective of living in Black Mountain, so that when I talked about Black Mountain, you would have an overall feel of Black Mountain. The second one was Craig Can, who has he worked for the Golf Channel and started the Golf Channel when it first started as a studio host. And Craig has really helped me as a public speaker. And there's a chapter in there about me trying to stretch myself as a golf instructor and an author, but I wanted to start building brand recognition. And so I went to Craig to learn how to stand up in front of people and get my message across that I'm trying to get across in a professional way. So that Craig has an intro for that chapter. Clark Kellogg, who I've gotten to know very well, who's with CBS Sports. Clark Kellogg has written a beautiful entry into the chapter that I wrote with him in mind when I wrote this chapter. And Clark is in fact, last night we were both on another podcast together talking about the book. And Clark just has he's just a great human being. and just the ability to stand up on CBS Sports and portray the game of basketball with his love and passion for it and get across positive message. I knew that he would be perfect for the book. And then I also wanted to bring in one of my students, Dr. Matt Mingione, who is someone I've been working with, and he's someone that's he operates on infants inside of their womb, the mother's womb, and he has we were out on the golf course, and I was trying to get him to relax and to be able to go through his pre-shot routine, and he stopped over the ball and just looked at me and said, "John, I get so nervous over these shots, I can't pull the trigger." And I told him, I said, "Doc, you operate on babies inside the mother's womb. Why are you nervous over this golf shot? Go through your pre-shot routine and just trust what we've worked on." And so when we did that, he started laughing and he kind of loosened up. And after that, he played great. So each one of these, as seen through my eyes, is a way for the reader to get to know the people that I'm talking about in the chapters from their perspective.
Interesting how they all come from different walks of life. And also what you said before, it's almost as if you were alluding to, we all have talents. We all have a purpose in life. And it's my belief that we're here to share that with others. Yeah, okay, be compensated for it so we can all live, easily or comfortably. And if that glorifies God, if that's your belief, then okay, that's great. There's people that say that, where do you think you got that talent from? There's a reason for that. You talk about the doctor. What a great story. Could any of us do what he does? No, but he's standing there and has challenges hitting a ball with a piece of metal. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, it puts things in perspective, and that chapter is called "Perspective from the Green," and I think that's something that we all have to look about. We can all complain about certain things that are going on in our life, maybe sitting in traffic, but then you think about the people in Florida who are dealing with a hurricane coming through. So when you look at it from perspective, I think all of us as Americans are so blessed, and we have so much to be thankful for.
Well, that we could do 5 podcasts on gratitude and why it's so important to practice that in moving your life forward. With your book, and by the way, I want to share with everybody once again, every chapter is short. Our attention spans are just that. And I just love that. I even thumbing through today at some of the as seen through their eyes that we're talking about. I love it when I flip the page. I try to challenge myself. I wonder how many pages this chapter is going to be. And there it is. It's done. And to me, that says it gets to the point. It gets to the point. And you feel fulfilled that you got something. So every day, if you want to read a chapter, takes you a minute, you get something out of it. You have a takeaway. Fantastic that you decided to design the book that way.
Well, I wanted the book to have the feel of a devotional, and a devotional gives you a message for the day. You could, wake up in the morning, you could read a chapter before you go to bed. It gives you kind of a message for the day, and then it gives you something to think about. And then for those that really like to delve in, I've had people tell me I've read the book in a day or 2 days. I don't personally like to read that way, but I wanted it really to have that feel of the devotional.
I'm not a speed reader either. I like to absorb what I'm reading. Let's go back to the back of the book and what you've got on there, and you pay tribute to somebody.
Yes, Phil Rogers, who is my mentor. I talk a lot about Phil Rogers in this book. Phil actually wrote As Seen Through My Eyes for my first book, but Phil is no longer with us. He died in 2018. So I wanted to pay tribute to Phil because I want the golfing world to know what a great man and a great instructor Phil Rogers was. Just to give you kind of the history on him, Phil and Jack Nicklaus were the same age. They grew up playing golf against each other as junior golfers. And Phil is from San Diego, California. Obviously, Jack Nicklaus is from Columbus, Ohio. Phil was the number 1 junior in the United States at that time, ahead of Nicklaus. Nicklaus often said, if I was going to win a tournament, I knew I had to beat Phil Rogers as teenagers. When they got to college, Phil actually went to the military for a couple of years and then went to the University of Houston, where he played, and in those days they played match play. He was undefeated. He was 53-0, never lost a match, which is unheard of. Won the NCAA tournament, turns professional, and in 1962 played against Jack Nicklaus in his first professional tournament, was the LA Open. Phil Rogers won the tournament by 9 shots. He had 9 birdies and 9 pars the last day and won the golf tournament by 9 shots. Nicklaus made the cut and got last place money. From there, a month later, Phil won in Tucson, and just like that, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So he would be the first to tell you that he didn't handle success probably the right way. He liked to hang out with Mickey Mantle and Joe Namath and people like that and have a good time. Phil ended up winning 5 professional or PGA tournaments and came in second place in the British Open. And as he got older in 1980, he and Jack were always really good friends. Jack reached out to him and said, I'm 40. I'm at the age of 40 now. I'm not playing quite as well as I used to. I need you to come down and spend a couple of days with me in Florida. And so Phil flew to Florida and spent 2 weeks with him. And he said every day all they worked on was the short game, and then they would go out and fish. And that year in 1980, Jack Nicklaus won the U.S. Open, and he won the PGA Championship. And Nicklaus said after that, he said, a lot of this goes to Phil Rogers and his help with me in the short game. And that's what put Phil Rogers on the map as being a great teacher. Now, I came in 1992, so I came in after all this had happened, and I didn't really know who Phil Rogers was, but he was so impactful in my life that I wanted the world to know how great of a teacher he was, how great of a human being he was. And so the talented instructors that I worked with at Grand Cypress, and there are some fantastic instructors, and we're talking about, with Kevin Weeks and Eric Eshelman and Carl Alexander. These are all national award winners. Fred Griffin was my director of instruction, who's a top 100 teacher for years. He's worked with tour players from all over the world. Fred taught me so much about the game of golf, about teaching, and also about being a Christian. Dr. Ralph Mann, who is a silver medalist in the 1972 Olympics, he also contributed to this tribute to Phil Rogers. And I learned a lot about the biomechanical movements of athletes from Dr. Mann. He actually developed a skeletal structure based on 54 tour players. He would film them with high-speed video, came up with a model of what they all would do, and then scaled that model to their body frame. And then you could look at how the student's golf swing and the model's golf swing worked. And the thing that I'd learned really quickly as a teacher is you can't swing like the model unless you set up like the model. And so that was something that taught me the importance of the setup. So all of these people that I mentioned, and there was 18 PGA professionals, actually 17 PGA professionals that actually went into making this tribute and contributed to it. It took a long time to get all of their stories together and put it together in the book, but I'm so proud of that tribute. And to me, it's probably one of my favorite parts of the book.
What was it about Phil? Why was he a great teacher? Why was he a great giver?
Well, first of all, his mentor when he was a child was Paul Runyon. He learned from Paul Runyon. Now, Paul Runyon won the PGA Championship twice. And I don't know if he won any other majors, but I know that he won the PGA Championship. And Paul Runyon was not a long hitter. He was a very short man, did not hit the ball very far, but had a fantastic short game. And so Phil had this wealth of knowledge that he had learned from Paul Runyon, plus all of his experience playing on the PGA Tour. He had the ability to look at the way an athlete would move, and he had the ability to pick out their problem, get to the root of their problem, and say it a million different ways. So he could talk to someone who has a real analytical background, maybe an accountant. He could teach them a certain way, but then he could teach someone who's a musician or who's a field player. He had the ability to say the same things a lot of different ways. And to me, that's what a great teacher can do. And they can communicate their message. They're not a robot just saying the same sales pitch to every single person they see. They have the ability to adapt to that person's learning style. And that's important as a teacher.
It's almost as if, and go lightly with this on me, but they have a sense of the energy. Like it's almost as if they're intuitive. where they can read the student and then apply the approach to them individually, knowing what they need. And that sounds like Phil had that interesting, keen sense to be able to do that.
He did. And, the one thing that where Phil and I were totally different is Phil's, bedside manner was a lot different than mine. Phil was a former, he was in the military. And so he was like a drill sergeant, and he would not sugarcoat things, but you're exactly right. He could pick out something. He could pick out a group of people, and within minutes, he could tell you, I'm going to approach this person. I'm going to teach them a certain way. And I'm going to teach this person a certain way. So he had the ability to pick up on what they did for a living, pick up on, by asking questions, getting to know them a little bit. But he had that ability, and I think that's what great teachers are able to do.
We're gonna pivot in a different direction.
Okay.
Got a golf question, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. This one is coming from Preston in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, my home state.
Exactly.
I don't know him, but welcome, Preston. Glad to have the question.
It says, my friends and I are debating this. If another ball interferes with my play, how should it be handled?
Another ball interferes with my play. Now, this is getting into the rules, and I will be the first to tell you I am not a rules expert. But if another ball actually, like if I was let's say that my ball is on the green, and let's say that you and I are playing, Steve, and Steve, you hit your shot on the green, and your ball moves my ball. Okay. Now, your ball, wherever your ball ends up, that's where you play your ball. I have to move my ball back to where it was on the green. Now, obviously, we could be 150 yards away. We have to the best of our ability, say, okay, my ball was right here. Your ball hit my ball and moved it 3 feet. We're going to move it 3 feet over. And you kind of come up with a consensus of where that is. Now, if the ball is in your play, like, for example, if you're in a situation where your balls are right beside each other and I'm going to hit, and let's say that your ball is right in front of my ball, and if I were to swing and hit, I would actually hit your ball. It's in my way. Then I can ask you to mark that ball, even if you are in the fairway or in the rough or in a situation like that. You can mark I could have you mark your ball. You would pick your ball up and not move the ball. You have to put it back exactly the way you have it. I would hit my shot, and then you would go back and put your ball down. So that's a great rules question. I hope that I answered it the proper way, because I based on the information you gave that Preston gave us, I think that's what he was alluding to. But if I haven't, please let us know, and I'll try to answer it a different way.
Yeah, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Appreciate it, Preston. John, what are the common either questions or advice you give most frequently?
The most common thing that I see with my students are most golfers are slicers. So for a right-handed player, that's a ball that curves to the right. And I deal with that a lot. And it always goes back to the grip. I would say the first thing that I do when I look at any player is I look at how they hold the club. Because how they hold the club, how they place their hands on the club is very important. You must hold the club in the fingers and not in the palm of the hand. So you want to make sure and get that club, in the fingers tips, and, where your joints are, you have those 3 joints. I want them, in that second joint and the joint right here, right on the base. So right in there, these 2 joints, we're trying to get the club, in the fingers like that. That's very, very important. And then how you place the V's of the left and right hand are, for a right-handed player, would point toward the right shoulder. So getting the hands on the club is the first thing that I look at, because most golfers put the club right in the palm of their hand, and when they do that, it would be like throwing a baseball. If I put a baseball in the palm of my hand, I can't really use my wrist. If I shoot a basketball and I put it in the palm of my hand, I have no touch. You don't really have any power. You don't have any touch in the palm. You want to get it in the fingertips. So
wow,
that's a great tip right there for the listeners out there. When you grab the club, you want to make sure that you're holding in your fingertips. And it's very much like when I hold this pen. See, I'm holding it in my fingertips. If I hold the pen like this, I don't have any dexterity in my wrist, and I would have a very difficult time signing my name like this. But when I hold the pen at my fingertips, now my wrist can move. And you want to be able to allow your wrist to move in the golf swing. Now, you don't want to force that action. You want to allow the body to swing the club back, and the momentum of the club will then move the wrist. So how you hold the club sets up a domino effect on how you're going to swing the club.
What a great tip from a novice to a pro. And I'm not even close to a novice. I'm not saying go to the pro side there. But even messing around at Topgolf, I'm sure you know what they are.
Oh, yes.
And they're pretty much everywhere. I try to take my swings there, and intuitively you're going for the palm because you think all the power is there. But no. Wow, what a great tip.
Yes.
And do you find that even players that have been around for a while are still favoring the palm?
Oh, yes. I've worked with golfers that have been playing for 30 years with poor grips. And of course, they don't want to change. And so they want to know, they want to know, well, I'm not hitting it as far as I used to, and my ball's kind of a weak shot to the right. And as soon as they start saying that, I'm looking at their grip. I'm going to look at their grip anyway, but I pretty much know that that's probably where I'm going to go, because the grip controls the club face, and the club face controls your swing path. So if you have a grip that is weak, where you're holding it in the palm, we call that in golf teaching circles, that is considered a weak grip. A strong grip is more when you turn it your hands and get it, the club, those V's going too much to the right. Some people get their V's going too much to the right shoulder. That would be a strong grip. But most people I work with put the club too much in their palms, so they have a very weak grip. And so if the club face is open, that ball is going to go to the right every time. And so what they have to do is they have to then swing to the left to counter that. And so they try to, that's the way their body will instinctively swing. And it's amazing how your body figures these things out when you do something the wrong way. So what a lot of students do is they make the mistake of getting on YouTube and they watch a video on how to shallow out your golf swing, and they have a bad grip. And well, if you have a bad grip and you shallow out your golf swing, you're going to shank it even more to the right. So what I try to do is I try to always get the students to get their grip right, to get their club face right, so that their ball goes where their swing goes. So if they're swinging 30 yards left of the target, I want the ball to go 30 yards left of the target. Then I work on shallowing out their swing path. So you've got to do things in the right order. And that's what the average golfer, they don't understand this. And they go out there and they watch a YouTube video, try to apply it, and they get worse.
Would you say it all starts with the grip?
Absolutely. That's the first thing that's the only connection that I have to the golf club. And I can control the grip. I don't need to be a high level athlete to have a good golf grip. You have to have an understanding. And that's my job as a teaching professional, is to teach that. Now, it's very difficult for me to teach this over a podcast, but for the listeners out there, if you'll go to my website, deckergolf.com, on my website, I have about 200 videos on there, and they're broken down into full swing, putting, chipping, pitching, bunker, course management, golf fitness. So there are a lot of different videos, and they're in categories, and it's all from me. They're all consistent messages. And my number one advice to you is, I have a lot of students who come to me and say, well, John, I've been watching these YouTube videos. And I told them, I said, every time you watch a YouTube video, I feel like you're having an affair. You're not being loyal to what I'm trying to teach you. Not that there's not some great videos out there, and there's some fantastic teachers, but you've got to be careful in getting mixed messages and learning one thing from one teacher and learning another thing from another teacher. You're going to find that all the teachers out there, they're not giving the same consistent message, and this can be very confusing for the average golfer.
Got to tell you, John, you make it very clear. I mean, we're just talking, and I have like incredible visuals of what you're saying, and you make it exciting and inspiring. I don't play golf. I'm actually now thinking about it, just even from this conversation where, I feel like I know a little something. And it's gratifying to know that even people who have been playing a long time have grip issues, just what you're saying with the palm. Wow.
Absolutely.
So Decker.com, we have links to the videos. We've got lots of other details, and then details also in the book, correct?
Yeah, and that's deckergolf.com.
Oh, I'm sorry, Decker Golf, and it's Decker is spelled Decker.
Decker, deckergolf.com.
Got it.
It's real simple.
John, thank you so much for today. That just breezed by.
Yes.
Shocking, but very inspirational. 2 great books. Golf has changed your life, and it's not just about the game. It's about what's around it, and that's what we're talking about here. Thank you so much for being around with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. As a child, my dream was to win the Masters, but in life, dreams don't always come true. God's plan for my life was to teach the sport that I love. My journey has led me to the highest levels of professional golf. I have been blessed to learn from the world's greatest teachers, including my mentor, Phil Rogers. Over time, God led me to become a Christian author. My second book, Fairways to Heaven, One Shot at a Time, was written to glorify God and His Son, Jesus Christ, and to show the world that through faith, God's dreams for your life will come true. To learn more, go to deckergolf.com.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15s. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit. And make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.